So, hi, Coach Mia. I would like to welcome you today to PicPax Podcast. It's great to have you today with us and to just have some insights from your great experience, the 10 years experience in Dubai and sports nutrition for sure. And you helped a lot of athletes to optimize their performance. So, I would like to start with you. Why nutrition is so important for athletes?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I think there's many reasons, but mainly, so nutrition provides the energy for uh, to exercise, and through nutrition, athletes, even regular active people, that's how you recover, that's how you get your gains from the training, and that's how you also allow yourself to have a good performance. So obviously, it has a huge impact. And it's along with many other things, for example, rest and recovery, and then there's also nutrition. So it cannot be really one without the
The
other
other,
one.
yeah.
Yes. So yeah, it's really important.
So also, I would like to know what is the difference between general healthy eating habits and sports nutrition?
So general healthy eating, like nutrition, it focus on overall health and well-being. So it's not really focused on something like certain areas. It's just mainly making sure that the person is eating in a balanced way to get all the
Okay.
nutrients.
Yeah.
And when it comes for the athletes and sport nutrition, it can be really a sport specific. So then you really look for the macro ratios, for example, if the athlete
Okay.
is getting enough protein, enough carb, enough fats, and also enough micronutrients based on the demands of the sport and the intensity of the sport, and also if the athlete is competing or if it's off season. So it really, yeah, on that way.
Okay, so for sure, different sports needs different demands. So is there different nutrition needs from sport to sport?
Yes, there is a big difference. So, for example, if you look, I think the classic example is the
Yeah.
endurance athlete and the strength training athlete. So, on those, like the emphasize different macros more over the other one. So, for example, endurance athletes, they do focus more to get enough carbohydrates, while the strength training is more focused on protein. And it still doesn't mean that the endurance athletes don't take any protein. They obviously have to also focus taking
Yeah.
enough protein, and vice versa with the strength training. But yes, there's a difference. And even inside same sport, if we take example like a runner, for example, so marathon runners, they consume a huge amount of carbohydrates for the
Carbohydrates.
training, yes.
Okay.
And then if you look another runner who can be a, let's say, sprinter, for example, they might focus more to get more proteins than carbs. So there is always a difference. So while we work with the athletes, like we really need to understand better the sport they're doing, like even inside the sport, like, okay, if person say I'm a runner, but I kind of need to know, okay, what kind of a runner? Are you long distance? Are you sprinter? Are you doing something in a between or a bit of all of those? So yes, there's a difference definitely.
Okay, so regarding consistency, for sure it's important. And so how you helping your athletes to keep motivated during their training?
So obviously we need to look more the total training load, like how much they're training, what's the intensity, how is the recovery in between, and also to see that the nutrition matches with the training so that the athlete is actually getting enough energy from the nutrition. So I think what happens quite a lot when athlete gets burnout from training, overtraining is if we don't really think about the training itself, it might be that the athlete is kind of underfueling themselves. So they are not eating enough, like getting enough calories, and that can lead into different problems in the long term.
So what are the signs of underfueling? How they know they underfueling for?
There can be many symptoms. For example, the recovery might be really bad. The rest overall is really bad. It can even affect on the sleep. So the athletes cannot really sleep properly because they might be waking up even middle of the night feeling, okay, I'm a bit hungry now actually. Or they
Yeah.
might thinking about food all the time. The training itself might be really bad. They might be hitting some plateaus all the time on their training. They feel like they're not progressing at all. So the overall performance might go quite low and like can be really poor quality. And it can even have an effect on the mental health, because the athletes might. So usually when the athletes train, they are really looking forward for the next training session, for example, they have. But it might have the counter effect that they could not care less about training anymore because they're just so fatigued all the time. So there's definitely many symptoms on underfueling.
Okay. From your experience, what is the biggest mistake that athletes do in their diet?
So definitely the underfueling, and the other one is to be too strict with the diet. So to try to really make it super clean, to think it will help with performance, and it might help a short period of time, but again in the long term it might have the different effect on the athlete. So if you are kind of cutting all certain food groups out of your diet, thinking they are bad, I cannot have those. I'm only eating really a boiled or steamed food, for example, because that's the healthiest option there. It can be really stressful for athletes too. So I think those two, underfueling and being too strict with the diet. Also with the strictness comes that to count, they use the scale for every single food you're eating. It's a great tool to understand better in the beginning, like, are you getting enough calories from your food, and kind of evaluate, are you eating enough, for example, to kind of teach yourself to visualize, okay, this amount of chicken might be now 150 grams, for example. But if you're all the time really using the scale before you eat, it can also have a quite bad effect, both mental and physical health too.
So, for sure, traveling is disturbing our daily routine. So, how you manage that with your athletes and helping them to have the right diet while they are traveling?
So meal prepping is an excellent way of making sure they are eating enough. Maybe looking a bit of in advance, if the athletes are staying in a hotels, for example, like what are the food options nearby the hotel? Are there any restaurants? Are there any grocery store? And also to kind of, if possible, to them to kind of pack their own snacks with them wherever they travel. And one good way of making sure that they are eating in a healthy way while traveling, because there might be, the pro athletes might have 200 plus traveling days per year, which is, it can be a really puzzle to handle with nutrition wise. But when you're really dedicated and you're putting just a little bit effort for your nutrition, it's a still doable thing. And like one option is, example, if there's an athlete they have to attend some food buffet, for example, after competition, to kind of choosing something like grilled meat, for example, with veggies and some sort of other carbs, a little bit of a good fats. That's already it does the job with the nutrition.
Okay. And for someone who is just starting, how you help them to structure their meal, for example, and diet?
I would say, how would I help is to keep it really simple. Like focus on the good things you already have in your nutrition. If you're already eating a decent amount of veggies or protein or carbs, think if you could still add a bit of those instead of removing something from your diet. So it's always like add something good more than rather than taking something out from your diet. And don't stress too much. Like nobody's perfect. We're still just the humans. There might be days when your diet is not the optimal. It might be that you have to take some takeaway instead of having the meal prep, from home, so, which is completely fine. Like it's all about kind of adapting to the flexible mindset with nutrition. And maybe if the person is engaged in any sort of sports, to maybe kind of understand what type of a sport. Is it more like endurance? Is it strength? To kind of understand which nutrients you should maybe focus a bit more on your diet. But overall, let's just keep it really simple. That would be my advice.
That's great advice. Okay, so regarding consistency, for sure it's important. And so how you helping your athletes to keep motivated during their training?
One is to have a reasonable goal that you are aiming for, because it gives you the discipline, it gives you the motivation to work a bit extra harder to reach the goal, and also not to be sad if for some reason you cannot reach the goal. If if it's some related into competition, for example, because in athlete's life, things happens. You might get injured, you might get sick.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like also learning to overcome those setbacks. That's really important. So I think those two, and also, like I said before, to be able to be flexible with the nutrition, it's it carries for a long way.
Okay. I will come to supplements. For athletes who is following different diets, like keto or vegan diets, so how you help them to structure their meal plan, and also what's your advice for the supplement that they should take?
So when it comes for supplements, I think obviously it's always important to get it like the food first principle. But in some cases, athletes have a huge demand for nutrients compared to regular person. So it's kind of important to understand what kind of nutrients they need. So or supplements. So I think a simple protein powder, it's always a good option. It's very convenient. It's easy to carry with you to the gym if you need to, because some athletes or active people might have a really high demand for protein. So it can be extremely difficult to get from the food if it's like over 100 grams, for example, 150 grams. Depends on the person's size, obviously, and the training. So it's very convenient protein powder. And also creatine, it's one of the most researched supplements out there. And then I would say, like, there's other things, for example, D vitamin, it's good. It also
Okay.
depends on iron. So there is like
So
those.
let's do like top three
Yeah.
supplements. What top three
I
from
would
your
say,
point?
protein powder,
Yeah.
creatine, and then I think I would go between D vitamin or even caffeine is great.
Okay, for athletes who is following different diets, like keto or vegan diets, so how you help them to structure their meal plan, and also what's your advice for the supplement that they should take?
Obviously, following a certain diet, it means you might not be getting enough nutrients on your diet, so that's one. And the second is it depends what kind of sports you're doing. So if we take example of vegan athlete, it's quite common that they might lack iron, for example, from their diet because they are not getting it from the like a meat sources, for example. And then one other thing is B12, also for the same reason. So there is definitely a lack of like a nutrient deficiencies in those specific diets. And keto, for example, the athletes they might lack electrolytes, for example,
Yeah.
because the glycogen through the carbohydrates it kind of absorbs the water in your body. So while you're in a keto, you don't have the storage, the similar hydration on your body already. So you might be lacking certain electrolytes, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are there any type of food that they should avoid before sport?
Yes. So there's actually quite a few.
Quite
So I
few.
think
That's
this is like
interesting.
it's more
Yeah.
like a learn and try.
Okay. So it's different from
It's
one to one.
yes, and it depends on the timing, how much time you have between your meal and between your training. But overall, I would say a greasy food, like a really oily food, for
Greasy.
example.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it takes time to absorb, so it might
Ah.
just sit on your stomach. And other one is having really heavy meals before you work out. Obviously, and then if the food it takes time to digest. For example, oatmeal is an excellent snack for everyone.
Snack. Okay.
Yeah, like
That's
I'm really,
interesting.
I think
Yeah.
it's super healthy. But also it means like oats, it takes more time to digest. So for the same reason, you might feel you a bit like uncomfortable while training because you feel like it's still there in the stomach.
Yeah.
And also fizzy drinks, sodas, it might make you also a bit uncomfortable. And yeah, I think those are the main.
So, what is the best time to have the meal? Like before the workout with 2 hours, for example, or
Yeah, like something, it can be even half an hour if you just eat smartly. You take something really easy, digestible, for example, banana or a simple white toast with some jam and peanut butter works really well too. But overall, if you have like 2 hours, that's already quite safe time before your training. Yes. Yeah.
so from your experience, what is the best pre-workout food?
It depends kind of what you're doing, but if you are a strength trainer, I would say a little bit of a protein and a little bit of a carbs, and obviously making sure that you're hydrated enough for your training.
Okay. And also, what's your advice would be the best a post-workout food to aid recovery?
So both of those, and like even if you're a runner or you are the endurance or cyclist, obviously you need to fill your glycogen stores, so to have the carbs, but also to make sure that you still also need a bit of a protein, and also make sure that if you're sweating a lot during your exercise, to make sure that you're replenishing those like electrolytes you are missing through the sweat, for example. So
Right.
drinking enough, that's hydration. Yeah.
Great. Okay, there are also some misconceptions like if I want to build muscles, I have to eat a lot of proteins. Is that true?
Up to a certain point, I would say it's
Okay.
important, but obviously nowadays protein has made to, like, really it's one of the most important things apparently there.
Yeah,
While there's still
sure.
other nutrients too which are important,
Okay.
but protein, it's definitely needed to build a muscle, but up to a certain point. So our bodies can digest or utilize the protein into a certain point, and the rest that we eat. So it doesn't really mean that the more protein that equals more muscles necessary, because the rest of the protein you eat, which the body just doesn't need, it might be oxidized and then it's gonna be probably stored as a fat. So
Yeah.
even like kind of not to go overboard with protein, and that's important.
So also, Coach Mia, I would like to go for the sources of protein. Is there a different sources of protein?
Well, obviously, if you think meat sources like a lean protein, chicken, turkey, for example,
And if I'm vegan?
then tofu.
Okay.
There is quinoa, for example, or even like there's the vegan protein powders, and it's always good to choose a blend one. So there is, because the vegan proteins are not really, the protein powders might not be complete with the proteins. So kind of mixing up a little bit, making sure you're getting a bit of here, a bit of there, to kind of make sure you're getting all the essential ones.
Yeah. Okay. As you mentioned about the physical wellness, so how you help them to balance the physical wellness along with the emotional wellness as well?
I think one really important one is rest and recovery and sleep. Sleep is really underestimated, the power of it for the
Yeah.
performance. So really make sure that you're sleeping enough, because it might be that your performance is really bad, and then we look into your nutrition and it's really great, and then I kind of start thinking that, okay, is there something else maybe? So then I need to ask about the sleep habits. Is the person sleeping enough? And then to have some support, like people around you who understand maybe what you're going through with your sport, and the people to talk with, so you don't have to handle everything by yourself. Even if there's a setbacks or injuries, it can be really depressing also for athletes. So kind of have a person or people around you who can support you through the tough times, even, or even through the good times, too.
Yeah, sure. Support is always needed.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I think those, and also, like we talked earlier, to have a certain goal in your mind, because it kind of it gives you the clear picture what you want, where you want to get yourself.
Achievable one for
Yes,
sure.
exactly. Yeah, not something too crazy. It can be even like really small goal, but then when you feel like you're getting there and you reach your goal, it's like, wow, like I did actually this, and now I
Yeah.
can maybe set another little goal.
Yeah. You will feel motivated
Yes,
to
yes.
set another one.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. I would like to know also from you how you assess if supplement is needed for athletes or even someone just interested into fitness.
I think the best way in the beginning is to tell this person to kind of keep a food diary for some
Okay.
days, and then I will usually go it through really thoroughly and kind of analyze, like, to see what's there and how this person is eating, and if there is possibly some nutrient gaps, like I can tell there is. And then if I notice that there's something irregular in eating habits, for example, and kind of trying to think what kind of sports the person is doing, and kind of I might already see that, okay, if this person might not be getting, for example, enough of iron, that I suspect there's a lack of iron. So I might ask the person that it would be good to get some blood tests done, just to be sure, because it's always better to, if you're in doubt, just get it checked rather than overdosing with supplements.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's the best way, the easiest way also. Yeah.
So assess it first and then you can advise which as per the deficiency
exactly.
level.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And also regarding eating disorders, how you handle that with your clients or athletes?
it's a really delicate topic with athletes because usually they might not realize themselves that they might have problems with the eating. So usually it starts with like there's some disoriented like eating patterns, but on that time like they are not really aware that it might also lead into eating disorders in the long term. So if you notice those things really early enough, then the more easier it is. But if it already develops in an eating disorder level, then it takes time. It's a really, you need to consult probably many other people around it to get them involved, doctors, sometimes even psychologists, to kind of help. So it's more like understanding where does it come from. And I think nowadays one trigger for the eating disorders, for example, is sadly it's the social media, and people can be extremely cruel, commenting people's weight without really realizing that it might actually do lots of harm for the person. And also athletes, based on what they're doing, if they're really in aesthetics sports, let's say figure skating, gymnastics, you're kind of exposing yourself a lot for the audience, not just physically, but also the way how do you see, because the way you present yourself is also part of the sport. And it doesn't really necessarily help that like gymnastics, they might be wearing really small clothes, for example, like a tiny piece of clothes. So they are really aware of their bodies. And even one single word saying that, oh, I think you don't really look great on that outfit, for example, it might really trigger a lot on this person. So it's so talking about eating disorders with athletes, it's a delicate. You really have to think ways how to handle those situations. You need to kind of try to put yourself in this athlete's shoes and understand where it's coming from. And recovery won't happen in overnight. It might take months, it might take years in some cases. It depends how badly developed it is already. But obviously, I think the percentage of the athletes it's obviously more common among females, the eating disorders, but also men can suffer this one. It just happens usually in different ways. So for ladies, for example, eating disorders might exist in a way that there's a significant underfueling. So they might, I don't know, they might create themselves orthorexia, which means you're really eating super clean all the time. It might lead you in deficiencies in nutrients, or anorexia is one, for example. But for the men, it might be, it's called muscle dysmorphia. So you kind of, even if you're a muscular man, you might not see yourself a muscular. You might still see yourself really tiny. So that already tells a lot that, okay, maybe there's something not really right. And obviously that can also lead to, you want to even make yourself more muscular, even though if you already, so it might even lead that you're going to take the next step. It might be that you start taking steroid, for example, to grow more muscles. So it's, it can be present in many different ways. Sometimes it's really easy, like really difficult to even spot on athletes.
Okay, for athletes who is following different diets like keto or vegan diets, so how you help them to structure their meal plan, and also what's your advice for the supplement that they should take?
I think nowadays you can find everything online. You want to lose some kilos, you go online, you search. You want to gain some muscles, again, you do the same thing. But the problem with when you do it from the internet resources is that it doesn't really take accountable of your like personality, your sport, like are you having some lifestyle,
Everything.
exactly, all these things. You're like if you're coming from some certain culture, you might have some certain foods you really enjoy eating. Eating habits, all of these. So I think the worst thing that could happen is to copy paste 100% some meal plan online. It might work obviously with some people, but in general it doesn't really work for a long time. It's not really sustainable way, because the nutrition should be really easily adaptable on your lifestyle. And if you change it too much too soon, and too short, give yourself too short period of time to do these changes, it doesn't really work that well. It has to be taken little by little, step by step. Start with the really small changes. So I would say to kind of aim for the balanced way of eating, just to make sure your plates are always colorful. That means you're getting
Yeah.
quite good amount of nutrients. You have some sort of protein, bit of a carbs, bit of a healthy fats, and that you're hydrating yourself. So that's already takes quite far away. Instead
Right.
of copying everything
Sure.
online.
And
Yeah.
then nothing like one size fits all.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and I would like also to come to some specific questions regarding supplements. So I would like to know from you, like for example, L-carnitine. We heard like all athletes taking L-carnitine. What is the rule of L-carnitine, sir?
So it's used as a kind of like a fat burner for
Okay.
athletes. But there's obviously, when it comes to supplements, like there's always ongoing research with those things.
Okay.
So it might, like in some cases, the athletes might benefit from it. But I think it's really individual. So it's kind of hard to say what's the right way of doing it. But
Okay.
obviously, like, I think it would be good to first fix your diet a little bit if you want to lose fat, for example,
Yeah.
and then think about your exercise. And then on top of that,
As a
as a
complementary, you mean?
complementary, if you really
Okay.
want to try it,
Yeah.
I don't really see any harm from it as long as not overdosing or going crazy with anything. And also like not to use it all the time, just kind of like short period of time and see how it works for you.
Yeah, and also regarding omega-3 or the vegan version of it, like algae oil, how it's important for athletes.
It is really important because omega-3s, they take part of the reducing the inflammation, for example, in the body, because
Yeah.
exercise creates a bit of inflammation
Yeah.
in the body. And it's good to get it through nutrition. But in some cases, it's not easy. For example, if you're vegan, you cannot really get it from the fish oil
Yeah.
sources, for example. So you need to go for the algae oil, but it's still it's a good source for omega-3s. And it's also really important to have it on your diet.
Yeah. Great. Okay, let me end with you with some interesting questions. I would like to know from your experience for sure, any success story you would love to tell the audience about it and how it transform someone's life.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely some really good ones, and we were really happy the result of the coaching. And I think one that comes to my mind, I had one client who was a ex-athlete and retired from the sports, obviously by then. But while the person, she was a lady, she was being athlete. She was living really disciplined lifestyle. Everything was really optimal. She had the guidance from the coach. How to fuel herself during the exercise and for competitions. But then, while she stopped competing and she kind of stopped sports doing for a while, she lost this support group around her, so she was kind of lost.
Yeah.
And obviously it continued for years, and she did not know how to handle her nutrition and exercise anymore. She didn't really interested in it. She put quite a lot of weight, and some other health problems started to arise with that. So it was really good that we managed to work together so well that we kind of managed to change these negative patterns and kind of make the person to be interested in exercising again, and to kind of handle the nutrition slightly better, because obviously it comes with a lot of benefits. It's not only that the person will lose a weight again back to her normal weight, but also the health improved a lot. The cholesterol levels went down and other markers too. So it was really good to see that those things, they help. And I always say, sports and exercise, it's amazing. Like, I think everyone should do it in a certain level that fits for them. No, but it doesn't mean that everyone has to be pro athlete to do it. Like, you can still do whatever fits best for you. Yeah. So yeah.
So, any other story you'd like to share other than this
Yeah, and
lady?
then I could take example, just a regular person who really wanted to start to be more active and get more engaged in sports. And so I was kind of there in the beginning just to make sure that the things are being correctly, and kind of emphasize that it's not about being really strict with the diets. You can still get good results just by having a bit of a flexible mindset with nutrition. So it was really nice to be there since the beginning, and then to see how it progressed over the time, to kind of see that the person really he gathered the knowledge about nutrition enough that is support his training, and he really got involved more into sports over the time and got the results he was always dreaming of. And so that's definitely another one.
Nice. And which cases you find it most difficult? The juniors or the newly start, or the athletes just they want to maintain their performance?
I think it might be in some cases the very juniors ones who are just about to start, because
Okay.
it might be purely the lack of knowledge of nutrition.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to make sure that the person understands what are the proteins, what they do for us, what are the
Yeah.
carbs, what they do to us, and why you should not really divide food. Okay, this is bad food, this is good. There is not inherently nothing is bad. It's just about the portions, how much you
Exactly.
eat.
Yes.
So I think that might be challenging in some cases, and also it makes a difference if the person, him or herself, wants to start this nutrition journey, or if somebody is, let's say, the other half is, spouse is kind of like
Yeah.
forcing them
The
to start
opposite.
it, because then it's not really the desire for change. It doesn't come from the person itself. It might come
Yeah.
from the outside, and also it might not be strong enough to make those changes happen. And with athletes, sometimes it can be challenging because they can be really aware of nutrition. They have, instead of usually a lot of knowledge about nutrition. So they might be sometimes really stuck on how things should be
Okay.
done.
Okay.
And it might be also the influence of online social
Social
media,
media. Yeah.
that they see things that, okay, this athlete was successful and the person did in this way. And then it might not fit for this person. And then I kind of have to find a way explaining that what is the, like, take more like the evidence-based approach, like why you might not benefit from exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's like a dancing, like it takes two, but you kind of have to find a way how to do it.
Yeah. Yani, I would like to thank you, Coach Mia, for joining us today. It's really great insights that you shared with us. And we will welcome you for other episodes for sure in our podcast. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me. This was a really great conversation, and
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.